It's said that the best things in life are free. Unfortunately, this ship isn't free. But for some reason, Gutamaya have decided that in order to buy this ship, you don't need to spend hours running jobs for the Empire to get your Imperial rank up. Instead, even the lowliest peasant is allowed to buy this ship, providing they have the coin, which for a Gutamaya ship makes a nice change. I know that some of you will already be chomping at the bit saying, "Brr, what about the Imperial Eagle?" But that ship doesn't count, because for all intents and purposes the Imperial Eagle is a core dynamic ship that's been tweaked by Gutamaya for the galactic version of Max Power magazine, rather than a through and through Gutamaya design. So getting to the main event, this is the Corsair. It's Gutamaya's latest and greatest ship, and like so many of the other recent ship designs, it's built around the new SCO frame drive, ensuring a degree of efficiency and smoothness when overcharging the drive. Being totally honest, it's not the prettiest ship that Gutamaya have come up with. That particular crown is still held by the Imperial Courier, with the Imperial Clipper coming in at a close second. From the back and above, the Corsair looks absolutely gorgeous, but I can't quite get over the toucan's beak at the front when looking at it from different angles. But it looks better than the cutter, so there is that. I do love the hidden heat sinks that only pop out when the ship needs to cool down. It's an elegant solution to temperature control. Speaking of which, temperature control in mine so far hasn't been a problem. It maintains its heat pretty well. The cockpit is ripped straight from the Courier with an extra seat thrown in, and that's no bad thing. While the canopy support rings do obscure a little bit of visibility, I do like how they guide your eyes to that central spot where all of the magic happens. The Corsair also breaks new ground for Gutamaya, in that they've designed a ship that, and this is a shocker, actually fits on a medium pad, which I'd argue makes this the most useful Gutamaya ship out of the lot, and with good reason, as it's pitched as a successor to not only their own Imperial Clipper, but it's also taking on Faulcon DeLacy's venerable Python Mark I, which is not a task to be taken lightly. It's a task that many have tried to take on and have ultimately failed by either being too big or not having the flexibility of the Python Mark I, but I think this ship might, maybe, just maybe, succeed on taking the crown from the Python Mark I as the best all-round medium multi-purpose ship. But we can cover that as we go along. First impressions when bringing the Corsair out of the hangar for the first time are, if I'm honest, a little bit underwhelming. Initially, even after A-rating the important bits, for example the thrusters and the FSD, the Corsair isn't bad. I've flown worse, but it's not exactly a ringing endorsement right off the bat. Imagine, if you will, that you took a beautiful woman home for the first time and her response to your, shall we say, efforts were, "I've had worse." It's not exactly confidence inspiring. Ultimately though, it just needs that little bit extra, especially for its pitch capabilities. That being said, its yaw maneuverability felt surprisingly good. Fortunately, there are engineers throughout the galaxy that are willing to give the Corsair just that little bit extra in exchange for a handful of materials, and believe me, just adding some dirty drag drive modifications onto the thrusters makes an absolute world of difference. Don't get me wrong, for a medium ship, unengineered thrusters will largely do what you need them to do, but engineering the thrusters makes this ship so much more pointable and useful in a combat situation. Speaking of combat, the hardpoint placements make a lot of sense with this ship, especially when compared to the cutter and the clipper. With its larger brethren, turrets make sense due to the nacelle-mounted weapons giving a huge gap in convergence, but with the Corsair, the weapons are reasonably central in comparison, making gimbaled and even fixed weapons a far more tantalising prospect than they are with the clipper and cutter. You get 3 large and 3 medium hardpoints, giving the Corsair an advantage over both the Python Mark I and the Clipper, as well as 4 utility mounts, which is equal to the aforementioned ships. I've gone a little bit basic with my final loadout, call me a basic bitch if you will, opting for a mix of gimbaled multi-cannons and lasers. and whilst the convergence is decent enough for fixed weapons, I prefer my ships carrying fixed weapons to be a little bit more agile, but maybe that's just me, and I never said I was an award-winning combat pilot or anything else quite so grandiose. Either way, it seems to be working pretty well with the right engineering tweaks, and I can't really complain about the offensive capabilities of the Corsair, aside from maybe the lack of a fighter bay, but that's splitting hairs really. Moving away from combat, let's talk about trading for a second. Until the release of the Type 8, I never really got the trading bug, since I associated trading with pouring through spreadsheets of profit and loss and going 40 extra light years in the name of a handful of extra credits. And if I'm honest, I see enough spreadsheets in my day job, plus this isn't EVE Online. But with the Type 8 and now the Trailblazers update, I've got a new interest in it, and whilst it's not fair to compare this to the Type 8, given that the Type 8 is a dedicated trading ship, I think it's more than fair to compare this ship once again to the current Multirole king of the medium pad of the Python Mark 1. And it's really not looking good for the Python as a multi-role ship in comparison, it has to be said. I already mentioned that in combat I think the Corsair is a worthy adversary, but for trade I think the Corsair has the Python beaten by a fair margin, given it can carry an additional 24 tons. Plus you can get better range out of the Corsair in a single jump, so you can do medium and long trade loops in less time. It's also pretty decent if you want to put ethics to one side and steal your goods from another pilot, using that additional speed to get away if you steal from the wrong person. And if you decide to obtain your wares in a legal way without buying them, then the Corsair has all of the perks that the Python Mark 1 has for mining, but again with more speed and more hardpoints. At this point I'm finding it extremely hard to think of anything the Python Mark 1 does for trade better than the Corsair. It's starting to feel like this ship was designed with a single objective, to curb stomp the Python Mark 1 off its medium multi-role throne, and then tell it that its sister is so fat that she has her own docking bay. Although some people say that the Anaconda is the sister ship to the Python, and yeah, that's kind of ruined the joke. Okay, back on topic, let's talk about how the Corsair does in exploration. I'd prefer a Mandalay or a Crate Phantom because they're both, well, better in this regard. But without doing too much Python bashing, because I've done a fair bit already, the Corsair is better than the Python Mark 1 by quite a margin, with a single jump range advantage of about 10 to 14 light years. I'm seeing theoretical builds of the Corsair getting in excess of 70 light years per jump, although it's worth mentioning that mine is rigged for much less than that, and as an all-rounder with full-size core modules I'm hitting around 35 light years per jump, which is more than enough for short-haul exploration. Plus, as with all of the newer line of ships, using SCO is a dream compared to older models. If credits matter to you, it's expensive, coming in at over 20 million more than a Python. Not that credits matter at this moment in time, given that it's arcs only. Will the Corsair be worth the additional 20 million? It depends how you look at it. Once you get to know your bearings in the Elite Galaxy, 20 million is pretty easy to come by, even if you're still rocking that insanely comfortable shoe that is the Sidewinder. So for a few more tons of carry capacity, another hardpoint and a bit more range, I'd say it's definitely worth it. But at the same time, if you're saving up for something a little bit bigger and want something in the interim, the Python is a mighty fine prospect, and buying one will give you 20 million credits that you can put towards your next big planned purchase, whether it be an Anaconda or an Imperial cutter. The other potential downside is subjective. Even if you don't have to suck up to the Empire to gain rank to buy this ship, it's still an Imperial ship. If your politics don't align to the Empire and you're strictly against having anything with their branding on, this ship is a complete non-starter. The only thing that you can hope for is that the Federation or Alliance come out with something comparable to the Corsair. Is this ship worth it as a medium multi-role? From my point of view, the king is dead. Long live the king. Also, for what it's worth, to me this ship is what the Imperial Clipper should have been all along. Don't get me wrong, I like the Clipper. It looks better, and despite it having all of the usual multi-role flaws, it's still a decent ship to fly. But I always felt the home of the Clipper should be a medium landing pad, which the Corsair addresses. Plus the additional firepower and storage is a bonus, even if the Corsair is lacking in some other respects. Either way, the Corsair is a fine ship. It'll be interesting to see the next moves of both the Federation and the Alliance. As always, I hope you enjoyed this one. I'll see you on the next video, and until then, take care, much love, and 07. Thank you.